I was once loved by 5 different suitors. A domineering CEO who spent fortunes for me. A film emperor who refused all intimate scenes because of me. A top surgeon who stayed on call for me 24 hours a day. A gentle professor who opened a private class just for me. And a bright, sunny schoolboy, the one I cherished most. Like a younger brother. They were handsome, wealthy, devoted, the kind of perfect men every woman dreamed of. I was intoxicated by that magnificent illusion. Until the day I died, crushed under the wheels of a deliberate car crash while trying to save Joel, the schoolboy. After my death, their game finally ended. But my judgment had only just begun. Hovering above my own funeral, I watched as the 5 men, those flawless paragons admired by the whole city, suddenly had the same blood-red warning flash above their heads. Target eliminated. Mission result, collective failure. Punishment mode activated. Enjoy the game. Chapter 1. My funeral was, without exaggeration, the most luxurious farewell of the century. The mourning hall was solemn and black. Mountains of imported white roses filled the space, each petal still carrying the dew of dawn. The mourners were all people of power and fortune. Flashbulbs flickered like lightning, so relentless they nearly bleached the black and white funeral banners. And at the center of it all was me, or rather, the enormous black and white portrait of me smiling on the altar. In that photo, I was radiant, my eyes curved into crescent moons, taken on my 18th birthday. Before the coffin stood 5 men, all in hand-tailored black suits, grief-stricken, their pain almost theatrical. At the front was Leo, the business emperor who controlled the economic arteries of Asia. His brow was deeply furrowed, his jawline sharp as a blade. The same eyes that once could stir financial storms were now bloodshot. Beside him stood Simon, the triple award-winning film emperor with over 100 million fans. He had taken off his sunglasses, exposing a pale, haggard face to the cameras. He stared at my portrait as though sheer will could pull me back from the frame. Next was Leonardo, the world's leading cardiac surgeon, the man whose hands had stolen countless lives back from death itself. Now those hands were trembling. Standing a little farther away was Noah, the youngest tenured professor in a university's history. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. Behind the lenses, his usually gentle eyes were clouded with grief. And kneeling closest to my portrait was Joel, the boy I had died saving. Still a college student, his suit hung awkwardly on his frame. He knelt before my picture, shoulders shaking, sobbing like a child. Alice, his voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What a perfect scene, a tragedy soaked in devotion. If I were truly dead, perhaps I would have been moved, but I wasn't. I was hovering above them, a restless soul, watching the performance of losing the love of their lives. They looked so heartbreakingly in love with me. Leo had once bought every billboard on the street to wish me a happy birthday. Simon had called me his muse during an award ceremony broadcast worldwide. Leonardo's work phone was on 24-hour standby, only for me. Noah had turned his dull classical literature lectures into bedtime stories just for the 2 of us. And Joel, the sunshine boy who used to call me Sister Alice with a smile, would sulk all day if I so much as glanced at another man. I had thought I was the happiest woman alive, cherished by 5 men every woman envied. I was touched by their affection, moved by their sacrifices, so much that I thought I'd die for any of them. And then I actually did. To save Joel, who had run into the street to retrieve something. I was hit by a runaway truck. In the fading fragments of my consciousness, I saw Joel rush toward me, screaming my name. But what I didn't see then was the cold, calculated glint deep in his blue eyes, as if he were confirming his mission progress. When I awoke again, I was like this, a drifting soul, unable to speak, unable to touch, only to watch. I watched them arrange my funeral, tearing up, collapsing in grief, performing heartbreak with flawless precision. At first, I was dazed. Then halfway through the ceremony, a voice echoed inside my head, mechanical, detached, not of this world. Ding, target, Alice. Vital signs lost, confirmed deceased, mission failed. And then I saw it. The sight I will never forget. Above the heads of all 5 men, Leo, Simon, Leonardo, Noah, and Joel, appeared glowing blood-red words, pulsing with electronic menace. Player Leo, mission failed. Punishment mode activated. Player Simon, mission failed. Punishment mode activated. Player Leonardo, mission failed. Punishment mode activated. Player Noah, mission failed. Punishment mode activated. Player Joel, mission failed. Punishment mode activated. The crimson text burned like a brand, visible only to me. And in that moment, I understood everything. Love at first sight? Faded obsession? Devotion deeper than the sea? It was all a game, from beginning to end. I had been nothing more than an NPC they were programmed to conquer. My death was merely the failure of their mission, and the end of their game, or so I thought. Then that same voice returned, tinged with a strange, sinister amusement. Detected, 5 players engaging in malicious competition and causing irreversible harm to the target. Violation level, S-class. Punishment escalating. Enjoy the game. The last 4 words echoed with a mocking digital chime. I looked down just in time to see Leo's face drain of color. His assistant grabbed him in panic. "Sir, something's wrong. The company's stock, it just crashed. Limit down in under a minute." Leo's head jerked up, disbelief flooding his eyes. Across the room, Simon's agent stumbled in, pale and stammering. "Simon, it's over. All your contracts terminated. Your endorsements canceled. And the internet's flooded with scandals. The servers can't even keep up." Leonardo's phone buzzed violently. He answered, then froze. "What? My name's been blacklisted from the International Journal of Cardiac Surgery?" Noah's screen lit up next. An email from the university administration. Subject line, notice of termination of all teaching positions. And Joel, kneeling, shaking, his phone was playing a video on loop. The driver who had hit me grinned at the camera. "Young master, it's done, just as you ordered." At that moment, in my morning hall, the 5 men who once claimed to love me, lost everything. Hovering above, I watched their faces turn ghost white, their eyes drowning in fear, and I realized, my death wasn't the ending. It was only the beginning of their nightmare. Chapter 2. The funeral ended in chaos. The 5 once untouchable paragons of the world now looked like 5 defeated roosters, disgraced, broken, and lost. I followed behind Leo like a silent shadow, watching him with detached curiosity. He returned to his office at the top of the city, a palace of glass and steel that had once been the beating heart of his empire. Every decision made here could shake the global market. Now, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he faced the sight of that same empire collapsing before his eyes. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Leo slammed his fist against the mahogany desk. The price list would cracked straight down the middle. His assistant, trembling, stammered, "Sir, the banks, they're all calling in the loans at once. The capital chain has snapped. The stock continues to plummet. Every project is suspended. And rival companies are buying up our shares at basement prices. We're on the verge of bankruptcy." Leo's eyes burned red, his breath ragged. A caged beast watching its kingdom burn. Half a lifetime's worth of blood and ambition had turned to ashes in an instant. No warning, no logic, just an invisible god's hand, flicking its finger, and his empire fell into the abyss. He called everyone he could, pulled every string he had, but the people who used to flatter him now avoided him like a plague. "Hello, Mr. Leo. The signal's bad here. I'll call you later." "Director, about that loan." Beep, beep, beep. Rejection, again and again. He sank into the CEO chair. Motionless, the setting sun bled through the glass wall, stretching his shadow long across the marble floor. That face, once carved with confidence and control, was now hollow, stunned, and defeated. Then, just as the last ray of sunlight disappeared, a miracle, the assistant burst through the door, panting, eyes wide in disbelief. "Boss, it's back, everything's back." Leo's head jerked up. On the screen, the stock prices that had bottomed out were now surging upward, defying all reason, climbing back to their original peak within seconds. His phone rang again. The bank president's voice oozed flattery through the speaker. "Aw, President Leo, what a misunderstanding. We'd never recall your loan, actually. We were just discussing giving you another one, interest-free." Business partners called too, eager to resume cooperation. Everything returned to normal. It was as if the catastrophic financial collapse of the afternoon had been nothing more than a bad dream. Leo stared at the screen, stunned. Then a wild, desperate joy filled his eyes. But it didn't last. When the sun rose the next morning, "Sir, it's happening again. We're bankrupt, again." The same scene, the same panic, the same despair. I floated above him, watching silently, and at last, I understood what the system meant by punishment. Leo's torment, the man who worshipped wealth and power, was to relive, every single day, an endless cycle. At sunrise, he loses everything. At sunset, he regains it all, only for it to vanish again the next dawn. Gain and loss, rise and fall, over and over, without end. The cruelest irony, everything he owns now exists only as an illusion. Like the reflection of the moon on water, or a flower trapped inside a mirror. He is eternally imprisoned in this hellish loop of having and losing. Chapter 3. I'd had enough of Leo's daily bankruptcy drama, so I turned my attention to Simon. The triple award-winning movie Emperor was not faring any better. Overnight, the internet exploded with scandals, dragging him from the pedestal of divinity down into the mud. Arrogant behavior, casting couch rumors, tax evasion, true or false. It didn't matter. It was enough to destroy him completely. Even stranger, no matter how hard his PR team worked, the blackmail never vanished. It couldn't be deleted, couldn't be buried. It clung to the top of trending searches like a parasite gnawing at bone. Simon hid inside his mansion, smashing everything he could reach. Why? Why is this happening to me? What he'd always been most proud of, his fame, his craft, was now his curse. He had lived for the spotlight, for the worship of millions, and now, he was the nation's public enemy. His agent entered, face pale and exhausted. "Simon, all your brand contracts have been terminated. The breach penalties are astronomical. We might have to sell the house." Simon glared at him, eyes bloodshot. "What about the film? The director who said I was irreplaceable? That was supposed to be his gateway to Hollywood, a high-profile international project." The agent hesitated, then pulled a thin script from his briefcase and handed it over. "The studio, also cancelled. Only this one production is still willing to hire you." Simon snatched the script and looked at the cover. Big bold letters read, "Fairy Warriors, When Rocks Go Crazy." His role, a farting rock. Pfft. I couldn't help it. I nearly burst out laughing. Simon's face turned from pale white to furious crimson in seconds. He tore the script to shreds. "You want me to play a rock? A rock that farts? Are you mocking me?" The agent sighed helplessly. "Simon, this is all we have left. No other crew will take you." "Did you offend someone you shouldn't have?" Simon froze. Offended someone? In his mind, my smiling face flickered like a ghost. His punishment was simple, yet cruel beyond words. The system stripped him of the very thing he valued most, his identity as an actor. From now on, every role he'd be offered would be trash, humiliating, absurd, degrading. He could refuse, but then he'd vanish entirely from the industry. He could accept, but that meant nailing his own reputation to the pillar of shame. For Simon, a man who treated art as his faith and fame as his oxygen, this was worse than death. Above his head, the scarlet warning glowed brighter. Player Simon, punishment mode intensifying. Next, it was Leonardo's turn. His punishment was the most direct and the most devastating. Leonardo, the world-renowned surgical prodigy. His hands once hailed as the hands of God, those hands that had once carved miracles out of flesh and blood, were now ruined. Behind the observation glass, I watched him enter the operating room. It was a simple appendectomy, routine, basic. He could have done it blindfolded. He took a deep breath, reached for the scalpel the nurse handed him, and then, without warning, his hands began to tremble. Not a subtle shake, but violent, uncontrollable spasms, like those of a patient with late-stage Parkinson's. Clang! The scalpel fell to the floor. A metallic echo rang through the sterile silence. Everyone in the room froze. The nurse stammered, "Doctor, your hand." Leonardo stared at his trembling right hand. Cold sweat beaded across his forehead. He tried to steady it, using every ounce of willpower. But the more he fought it, the worse it got. His fingers jerked like marionette strings pulled by a cruel god. I'm fine, he rasped, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Find another surgeon. He staggered out of the room, leaned against the wall, and slowly slid to the floor. He raised both hands before his eyes, once instruments of divine precision, now twitching helplessly, like two dying claws. A surgeon without steady hands was a dead man walking. His career, his pride, his purpose, all erased. He would never hold a scalpel again, never step into the light of the operating room he loved. I watched him bury his face in his knees, his shoulders trembling silently. Player Leonardo, core skill revoked, hands of God. So the system could tailor punishments that precise? How? Consider it. Chapter 4. The gentle and elegant Professor Noah received the most theatrical punishment of them all. In a university's grand lecture hall, every seat was filled. Many students weren't even from his department, they came from all over the campus just to witness the legendary scholar, the academic heartthrob, deliver his final open lecture before his dismissal. Today would be his last class. He wanted to end with dignity. He walked up to the podium, straightened his tie, and, as always, pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses with that calm, intellectual grace. Good afternoon, everyone, he said with a faint smile. Today, we'll continue our discussion on the influence of postmodern deconstructionism on contemporary literature. Everything seemed perfectly normal, until it wasn't. As we all know, the core of postmodernism is rather like the friendship between SpongeBob and Patrick, seemingly unbreakable, yet filled with an unspoken desire for the Krabby Patty secret formula. Dead silence. Students exchanged bewildered glances. Had they heard that right? Noah blinked, visibly confused. He opened his mouth again, trying to correct himself, but what came out was even worse. Foucault's theory of power can actually be perfectly illustrated through Black Cat Detective Catching One Ear. You see, power is that pistol firing the words, to be continued. The classroom erupted. Professor, are you okay? Did you oversleep? SpongeBob? Black Cat Detective? Is this literature 301 or cartoon analysis? Has he lost his mind? Laughter spread like wildfire. Noah's face turned purple with humiliation. He tried to explain, but his brain had become a corrupted file, his knowledge reduced to gibberish. No, that's not. I mean, Ultraman fighting monsters, no. I mean, Balala Fairy, woohoo, transform. And then, to his own horror, he struck a ridiculous magical transformation pose right on stage. Boom! The lecture hall exploded with laughter. Dozens of phones went up at once, recording every humiliating second. Noah, the man who prized intellect and dignity above life itself, was now a joke. That was his punishment, the loss of his knowledge and his composure. His mouth and his mind no longer aligned. The deeper his thoughts, the dumber his words. Every attempt to speak wisdom turned into childish nonsense. I watched as he stumbled out of the room, chased by merciless laughter and flashing cameras. The once gentle professor, now a fool in front of his students. Pathetic, hilarious, utterly satisfying. And then, finally, came Joel, the boy I had once died to protect. The one who caused my death, the root of it all. His punishment came last, and it was the most poetic. Chapter 5. Unlike the others, Joel's punishment was not loud or immediate. It crept into his life slowly, like a frog in boiling water. On the surface, he lost nothing. He was still the charming golden boy of campus, handsome, confident, adored. When he walked across the quad, girls still screamed his name, but only he could feel that something was deeply, terrifyingly wrong. His roommates, once his closest friends, began avoiding him. Joel, we're heading to play basketball. Oh, right. You're studying, right? We'll go without you. Hey, Joel, about that party tonight, it's already full. Maybe next time. He was being isolated. No reason, no explanation. When he went to class, the seat beside him was always empty. When he went to the cafeteria, no one ever sat across from him. It was as if he were trapped inside an invisible glass box, visible to everyone, but untouchable. And then came the true horror. Time stopped moving, for him alone. A year passed. His friends entered their senior year, busy with internships and thesis papers. But Joel remained stuck in junior year. He failed courses, not because he was stupid, but because his professors no longer recognized him. Joel, are you sure you're in this class? Sorry. Your participation score is 0. 2 years passed. 3. His peers graduated, found jobs, got married, had children. The university filled with new faces. But Joel stayed. He was still the same bright, handsome 20-year-old. Eternal youth, eternal stagnation. While the world moved forward, he was frozen in place. A ghost living in a loop. A student who could never graduate. A boy who could never grow up. His greatest pride, his youth, his beauty, had become the cruelest curse. At night, I watched him run laps around the empty track, drenched in sweat. A desperate animal trying to escape a cage that had no walls. Player Joel, punishment, eternal loneliness. Time suspended. The system's voice echoed coldly in my mind. You liked manipulating people, didn't you, Joel? You liked watching others fall for your smile, destroy themselves for your affection? Then here, enjoy what it feels like to be truly alone. You killed the one person willing to grow up beside you. So now, you'll never grow up again. Chapter 6. A month later, the 5 men who'd been tortured by their punishments until they were barely human finally gathered together. The location was Leo's office, the one that went bankrupt once every day. At sunset, Leo's company had just revived. He slumped in the main chair. Bluish shadows caked beneath his eyes. Simon wore a mask and a baseball cap, wrapping himself up tight. He had just been forced to shoot a scene where he learns to oink in a mud pit, and the stench of humiliation clung to him. Leonardo sat in a corner, hands stuffed in his pockets, saying nothing. I could see his hands still trembling uncontrollably inside them. Noah's face was waxy and drained. His spirit looked crushed. He hadn't dared to speak for a whole week, terrified that if he opened his mouth he'd blurt out something like Pikachu. Thunderbolt! Joel arrived last, backpack slung over his shoulders. He looked no different than a year ago, but the light in his eyes had gone completely dark. You're all here, Leo rasped, breaking the dead air. What exactly is happening to us? Simon pulled down his mask, revealing unshaven cheeks. This is too abnormal. It's a curse, Leonardo said, voice like it came from a freezer. A curse aimed at all of us. Since when? Noah typed on his phone and showed them. He no longer trusted his mouth. Silence. But the answer was already understood. It started the day of my funeral. It started with penalty mode on. It's her. Joel's voice shook. The blood had drained from his face. It's Alice. It's her revenge. Bullshit. Leo slammed the table. She's dead. How could a dead person retaliate? Then give me another explanation. Simon shot back. All 5 of us are suffering the most bizarre, unscientific misfortunes, and each one hits precisely where it hurts most. Leo cared about power and wealth, so he went bankrupt every day. Simon cared about reputation and career, so he was ruined. Leonardo cared about his hands, so his hands failed. Noah cared about knowledge and decorum, so he babbled nonsense. And Joel, what did Joel care about? He had approached me to clear a mission, even orchestrated my death. Now he was trapped in eternal youth, abandoned by the world. It's the system, Leonardo analyzed coolly. We were the players. Alice was the NPC. Our mission failed, so the system is punishing us. How do we end it? Joel's words were almost a sob. I can't do this anymore. I'm going insane. Silence fell again. End it? How? Right then, it was as if the same notification flashed through all 5 of their minds. They flinched in unison. Above their heads, the blood-red text jittered and refreshed with new content. Penalty pause condition. Increase deceased NPC Alice's satisfaction. Current satisfaction, minus 99,999. Tip. Please strive to please the NPC. They stared at one another, faces contorting into an absurd mix of dread and lifeline grasping hope. Alice's satisfaction? Please, a dead woman? Hovering in midair. I watched them like they'd been struck by lightning, and the corners of my lips lifted of their own accord. Oh. So the game had entered stage 2? I was starting to look forward to it. Chapter 7. How do you please a woman who's already been reduced to ashes? An unprecedented problem. The 5 men who once fancied themselves masters of everything now flailed like headless flies, launching clumsy, almost farcical attempts to win favor. Leo moved first. In his simple, brutish logic, since I'd enjoyed his lavish spending while alive, surely I'd respond to the same after death. So, he began a grand money-burning campaign. During the few short hours when his company revived each day, he frantically bought everything I used to like. My favorite C-brand limited bags? He bought out global stock, then piled them before my tombstone and torched the lot. Thick black smoke rolled up, stinking of charred leather and plastic. I watched the pricey things that once made my heart skip reduce to ugly cinders and felt nothing. He bought my favorite dessert shop, ordered the chef to make the freshest cakes every day, and had them delivered intact to my graveside, arranged in neat, overflowing rows. Within days, the air around my plot reeked of fermenting sugar and rot. Flies descended in droves, expressionless. I looked at Leo, over his head. NPC satisfaction didn't budge. Still that glaring crimson, minus 99,999. And his daily bankruptcy routine continued. Right on time. Clearly, that path was a dead end. Simon's approach was more artistic, leveraging what little, albeit infamously negative, influence he had left. He wrote me a song, My Alice. The lyrics dripped with earnest longing, you're the moon above, I the one who gazes. Life turns grayscale each day without you, paired with his haggard, soulful face and a self-accompanied video. Back then, it would have wrung millions of tearful streams from fans. Now, the comments were uniformly cutting. Isn't this the guy who played the farting rock? And he still dares sing? LOL. He got her killed. Now he plays Mr. Deep Feelings? Second-hand embarrassment. Stop exploiting the dead. Unwilling to give up. Simon wrote a script, a love story based on us. He painted me as an angel who saved him from darkness and himself as a man who could only live for me. He begged every director he knew. Only a no-name web series director agreed, on one condition: Simon must personally play the angel who saves him. In other words, he'd have to cross-dress as me. I saw Simon clutch the script and sit in his nanny van all night, sleepless. At dawn, with dark crescents under his eyes, he told the director, I'll do it. Me. These people would do anything to end a punishment. But no matter how many songs he wrote or scenes he acted, my satisfaction didn't twitch, nor did his torment lighten. The new king of turkeys, B-movies, C-dramas, and humiliation? That crown fit him just fine. Chapter 8. Leonardo and Noah took the intellectual route. Leonardo's hands, though no longer steady enough for a scalpel, could still hold a pen. So, he started writing medical papers, one after another, all about my minor health issues when I was alive. Neurological triggers and non-pharmacological interventions for intermittent migraine, a case study of MS, RQ. Emotional fluctuations in allergic rhinitis patients under specific environmental conditions. Dietary and psychological regulation for patients with weak spleen and stomach constitution. He analyzed me from head to toe, body to mind. Each paper was filled with meticulous data, quotations from top journals, and published in leading international medical reviews. The byline was always the same: Leonardo Alice. He wanted to immortalize my name in medical history, tied forever to his own. Romantic. Maybe. Unfortunately, as I stared at those dense charts and scientific jargon, my head hurt. Sorry, doctor, I was never into medicine. Satisfaction score, still negative. Noah, meanwhile, outdid himself. Since he no longer dared to speak, he chose to write. He bought the largest electronic billboard downtown and filled it with his poetry, scrolling 24 hours a day. Your eyes are midsummer stars, falling into my silent universe. I'd become the sycamore outside your window, guarding you through endless seasons. Without you, every lecture is stripped of wisdom's fragrance. Cavity-inducing verses, paired with my massive black and white portrait, made everyone who passed by break out in goosebumps. Soon, that billboard became a new city landmark, a cyber grave. Crowds came to take selfies with it. Every day, Noah stood on the pedestrian bridge across the street, gazing up in silence. He believed I could see his devotion from heaven. And indeed, I could. So I quietly gave him another -1. Because honestly, it was so tacky, and so embarrassing. Chapter 9. In this strange contest of pleasing the dead, the one who surprised me most was Joel. He had no money, no influence, only his cursed eternal youth and infinite time. Unlike the others, he didn't waste effort on empty gestures. He did something real. He went to my hometown, a poor mountain village far away. That's where I grew up. After my parents died, distant relatives in the city took me in. When I was alive, my biggest dream was to earn enough money to build a Hope School there. I'd once whispered that secret to the smiling boy who followed me everywhere. I never imagined he'd remember. Using all his savings and whatever he earned from part-time work, he started building the school, brick by brick. On a hillside, he did everything himself. Carried bricks, mixed cement, laid walls, painted. The once pampered campus idol was now sun-browned, his hands covered in calluses and cuts. Villagers thought he was a lunatic from the city. Only I knew he was atoning. The construction was slow, he couldn't afford workers, but he never stopped. Worked from sunrise to sunset. Lived in a makeshift shack beside the site, eating the simplest meals. I hovered beside him, watching him sweat, watching him collapse from exhaustion, watching him sometimes look up at the stars and whisper, "Sister Alice, I'm sorry." It was the first time since my death. I felt something stir inside me. I glanced up at his satisfaction score. NPC satisfaction, minus 99,998. It moved. Only by one tiny point, but it moved. At that exact moment, Joel froze. To his shock, the little village girl who had always hidden from him timidly held out a roasted sweet potato. "Big brother, this is for you." It was the first time anyone had approached him since his isolation began. Joel accepted it, eyes reddening instantly. He seemed to understand. From that day on, he worked even harder. Meanwhile, the other 4 men, after exhausting every ridiculous trick and seeing no progress, eventually heard, through one channel or another, about Joel's feat in the mountains. And that one-point change. Suddenly, they realized, pleasing me wasn't about money, fame, or false romance. It was about fulfilling my last wish. And so, a grand charity crusade began. Chapter 10. Leo stopped burning handbags. Instead, he founded a charity foundation in my name, the Alice Foundation. Every evening, when his company revived, he funneled all his regained wealth into it. Building schools, paving roads, sponsoring poor students, rescuing stray animals. Every cause I might have cared about or felt sympathy for in life, he did it all. His company still went bankrupt at sunrise every day, but his foundation grew at an astonishing speed, soon becoming the largest charity organization in the country. Countless people's lives changed because of the Alice Foundation. Countless others silently thanked Alice in their hearts. I watched Leo. He no longer raged when bankruptcy struck each morning. Now, he just sat quietly in his office, waiting for sunset, then calmly transferred the next day's fortune into the foundation's account. There was a numb serenity on his face. Simon no longer accepted trash films either. He created the Alice Art Support Program, funding young directors and actors with talent but no money. Using his experience and remaining connections, he helped them find investors, review scripts, and polish performances. He no longer chased fame for himself. He began paving the way for others' dreams. He was still disgraced, but the first small indie film he sponsored won an international award. On stage, the tearful young director said, "I want to thank Mr. Simon, and the eternal angel in his heart, Miss Alice." In the audience, hidden in a corner, Simon wore a mask and smiled faintly. There was relief in that smile, and sorrow. Leonardo took his trembling hands to the most remote, medically deprived areas. He could no longer perform surgeries, but his vast knowledge was invaluable. He trained village doctors, taught medical basics, built prevention systems. He was saving lives in another way. When his cursed hands held a stethoscope and pressed it to a child's chest, they didn't seem quite so unbearable anymore. Noah, meanwhile, left everything in the city behind. He went to the Hope School Joel had built and became a volunteer teacher who never spoke. He taught children to write, to draw, to know the world. With chalk, he filled the blackboard with graceful poetry and deep reflections, words he could no longer speak aloud. The children called him the mute teacher. They didn't know that this quiet man was once the academic prodigy who lectured in the nation's top university. The 5 of them, in their own strange ways, had all reached the same destination. They were all doing good, madly, obsessively, in my name. Not because they'd truly repented, but because every time they changed someone's life, every time I felt even a flicker of emotion, that tiny tremor of satisfaction fed back into their world. NPC satisfaction, minus 85,432. NPC satisfaction, minus 71,101. NPC satisfaction, minus 56,789. The number's absolute value slowly, but steadily, decreased. And with every reduction, their punishments eased a little. Leo's company went bankrupt a few hours later than usual. Simon's scripts upgraded from farting rock to talking tree with 2 lines. Leonardo's hands trembled less when not holding surgical tools. Noah could occasionally speak 1 or 2 coherent words. Joel began to have classmates willing to play basketball with him. Tiny rewards, but to them, they were like an oasis in the desert. Hope. Then the competition began. You built 1 Hope school today? I'll build 10 tomorrow. You rescued 100 stray cats? I'll sponsor 1,000 poor kids. They fought not as rivals in love, but as comrades in charity, competing for my satisfaction points. They even held regular meetings, satisfaction strategy conferences. I found out helping female college students yields higher satisfaction than male ones. Building hospitals gives more initial points, but slower long-term growth. Volunteering on-site works better than just donating money. I floated above their so-called conference, watching the 5 once arrogant men bicker and calculate like desperate gamers. And I thought, how absurd, how ridiculous. None of them truly felt remorse. Everything they did was just a grand, pathetic game. A game of self-redemption disguised as atonement. Chapter 11. Time passed, 5 long years of their frenzied charity competition. In those 5 years, schools, hospitals, and libraries bearing my name spread across the country. Alice had become synonymous with kindness and hope. The media even posthumously crowned me as the most beautiful philanthropist. And the real philanthropist, the one they were all worshipping, was currently floating idly above a playground at one of those Alice Hope primary schools, watching Noah teach the children poetry. 5 years had changed him. He could now speak in full, if broken, sentences. Spring, sleep unknowing dawn. Everywhere, birds are singing. The children followed his lead, reciting cheerfully. The sunlight was gentle, the world looked warm and peaceful, and the 5 men had finally reached a temporary victory. NPC satisfaction, minus 10, only 10 points left. The end was in sight. Their punishments had almost vanished. Leo's company could now operate normally for an entire day, only collapsing at the final second before midnight, then reviving at 12 o'clock sharp. Simon had graduated from playing a farting rock to being male supporting role number 3, still in a trashy movie, but at least no longer a plant. Leonardo's hands no longer trembled in daily life, though they still couldn't manage fine surgical work. Noah could carry normal conversations, as long as it wasn't academic talk. And Joel had finally advanced to senior year, with a few new friends to call his own. They all believed that with one last push, they could turn my satisfaction positive. And then it would all be over. They'd return to their former glory, the almighty men they used to be. And I, the NPC who had been dead for 5 years, would have exhausted my final usefulness. Ready to be completely forgotten, they'd already begun planning for their post-punishment futures. Leo was preparing for a new wave of business expansion. Simon was reconnecting with Hollywood agents. Leonardo booked hand rehabilitation therapy. Noah planned to return to a university. Joel would finally graduate and inherit his family's company. They'd all forgotten why I died, forgotten who started this punishment in the first place. It wasn't me. It was the system, the one that branded them S-class violators and cheerfully wished them a pleasant game. Did they really think it would let them go that easily? Because just when the satisfaction score was about to reach 0, something changed. Chapter 12. I found it. I found someone who can talk to Alice. At their latest charity symposium, Simon's voice broke the silence, bright, trembling with excitement. The other 4 turned toward him immediately. What do you mean? Leo frowned. A medium. Simon's face flushed red with fervor. A real one, someone who can actually communicate with the other side. We've done so much. Yet the satisfaction's still negative. That means Alice, she's still unhappy. We don't even know what she truly wants. But if we could talk to her directly, ask her what she needs, we could fulfill her wish all at once. End everything in one go. The idea hit them like a bomb. To speak to me? The temptation was too great. They were tired, exhausted by endless years of charity, of meaningless competition. They craved an ultimate shortcut. Is it reliable? Leonardo, ever the rational one, asked coldly. 99% of those people are frauds. I checked. This one's different. Simon insisted. She's mysterious. Only accepts clients she deems fated. And charges a fortune. But people say she's truly connected. She's helped countless others speak to their departed loved ones. Money isn't a problem. Leo cut in immediately. Where is she? Simon hesitated. His confidence faltered. There's one condition, he said. The master claims her energy is limited. She can only meet one person at a time, and she'll only connect to the one whose heart is the most sincere. The room went dead silent. Only one person. Who would go? Whose heart was the most sincere? They looked at each other, and the unity they pretended to have for 5 years shattered in an instant. The buried instincts of players resurfaced. Sharp and greedy, each of them wanted to be the one who could finish the mission, turn my score positive, and claim the ultimate reward. And so, once again, they fought. Not for me, but for themselves. Chapter 13. To fight for that single spot. They pulled out every trick they had. Leo slammed a blank check onto the table. Name your price, whatever that medium charges. I'll pay. None of you fight me for this. Simon sneered. The medium judges the heart, not the wallet. I wrote songs for Alice, made films about her. The whole world has seen my devotion. Noah adjusted his glasses, his voice calm and deliberate. The students I've taught will remember teacher Alice forever. That kind of merit lasts longer than any donation. Leonardo gave them all a disdainful look. You save souls. I save lives. Which one do you think matters more? Joel's face flushed red. He shouted, Alice's school, I built it. Brick by brick. The money you all threw in later was just decoration. From the beginning, it was me. They quarreled endlessly. From who'd done more charity to who'd loved me the deepest. All those once sweet declarations of devotion, those manipulative romantic gestures, became weapons. Leo, don't forget you threatened me with Alice's name just to make me sign that endorsement deal. Simon, how many times did you use Alice's kindness to sell your heartbroken leading man image? Leonardo, can you swear you didn't get close to her just to study her rare allergic reactions? Noah, you were the purest of all. You just wanted a perfect muse to polish your academic ego. And you, Joel, you have no right to speak. You know exactly how Alice died. I floated among them, watching the chaos unfold like the juiciest melodrama of the century. So this was the truth. They all knew. Each of them carried their own hidden agenda, weaving a glittering web called love, and trapping me inside it. They never loved me. They loved the version of me that reflected their vanity and desire. The Alice that made them feel powerful, adored, redeemed. In the end, they couldn't reach a conclusion, so they decided to let the medium decide. The 5 of them set off, side by side, to a secluded mountain villa where the mysterious woman lived. She looked ethereal, a middle-aged woman with calm eyes and the kind of serene air that people mistake for holiness. Her gaze swept across the 5 of them. She sighed softly and said, Your obsessions run deep. Master, please tell us. Leo said bluntly, among the 5 of us, who shares the strongest bond with her? The medium closed her eyes, muttering under her breath, her fingers moving as if counting invisible beads. Then she opened her eyes slowly and looked straight at Joel. It's you. Joel stiffened, eyes widening in disbelief and joy. The others looked furious, envious, disbelieving. Why him? Leo demanded. The medium sighed again, because in his heart, beneath all the obsession, there is something none of you possess. What is it? Guilt. After saying that, she ignored the rest and gestured for Joel to follow her inside. The inner chamber was dim, heavy with the scent of incense. Smoke coiled lazily in the air. Sit down, child, the woman said gently. Joel sat cross-legged, hands clasped, trembling. Close your eyes, empty your mind, in your heart, call her name. He did as told. His lips quivered as he whispered again and again. Alice. Alice. The medium sat opposite him, also closing her eyes, chanting softly. Time stretched. Joel's breathing grew ragged. Just as despair began to creep in, a faint, ethereal voice echoed through the room. Joel? My voice. Joel's eyes flew open. His body trembled violently. Alice, is that you? Is it really you? It's me. The voice was soft, fragile, carrying a mournful chill. I'm so cold. It's so dark here. Joel burst into tears. Alice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell me what to do. How can I make you forgive me? What do you want? I'll give you anything. There was a long silence. Then, I died, so horribly. My last wish is to see the one who killed me punished. Joel froze. The one who killed you? Yes, that truck driver. I want him to suffer the same way I did. Joel's face went completely pale. Chapter 14. Joel stumbled out of the medium's villa, pale and dazed, like his soul had been hollowed out. The other four rushed toward him immediately. How was it? Did you see her? What did she say? Joel's lips were white, his eyes evasive. She said she's doing fine. She told us not to disturb her anymore. He lied. He didn't dare to reveal my final wish. Because that truck driver, the one who killed me, was someone he had paid. To make that man pay for it would mean turning himself in. He couldn't do it. But if he didn't fulfill my last wish, the satisfaction score would never reset to 0. The punishment would never end. Joel sank into the deepest torment imaginable, torn between fear and guilt. The others, however, didn't believe a word of it. They suspected Joel had discovered some hidden clue and was trying to keep it to himself. So, they began to investigate the so-called medium on their own, and what they found shocked them. That renowned spiritual master was nothing more than a fraud. She had once been a background actress in Hengyan Film City, and after playing a few roles as a spirit summoner, decided to make a career out of scamming wealthy mourners. As for the imitation of my voice, that was Simon's doing. Years ago, when he was still trying to impress me, he'd secretly recorded hours of my voice to feed an AI voice generation project. A hacker had easily stolen the files from his cloud account. The so-called heart connection was just a random selection. Everything, the ceremony, the trance, the message, was a carefully staged performance. When the truth was laid bare, the 5 men were speechless. All the fighting, all the rivalry, had led only to this farce. Their final hope, gone. There was no shortcut. They had been nothing more than puppets, dancing in the hands of the system, or perhaps, fate itself. That night, for the first time, the 5 of them gathered at my grave, without schemes, without calculation. The cemetery was silent. Only the wind sighed through the pines. Under the moonlight, my black and white photographs smiled as serenely as ever. They stood there for a long, long time. Finally, Leo, the proudest of them all, was the first to kneel. He pressed his forehead against the cold stone. A dull, heavy sound echoed through the night. Alice. I'm sorry. His voice was hoarse, stripped of arrogance. Then Simon, Leonardo, and Noah followed, one by one, and last came Joel. He fell to his knees with a thud, weeping uncontrollably. Alice, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I shouldn't have hurt you for a mission. I'm a bastard, a monster. He slapped himself hard, over and over. It was me. I hired the driver. I told him to hit you, punish me, send me to hell. I deserve it. His screams tore through the quiet night. The other 4 stared at him, stunned. Their faces a mix of anger, disgust, and something else, a bleak, hollow grief. Because deep down, they all knew, none of them were innocent. That night, before my grave, they shed more tears than in their entire lives. They weren't acting this time. Those were the tears of 5 broken men, stripped of pride, stripped of excuses, facing despair, guilt, and the collapse of everything they once were. Real tears. Tears of repentance. I floated silently above them, watching, and then I saw it. Above their heads. The red digits began to flicker wildly. 10, 5, 1. 0. Finally, 0. Then, in my mind, that familiar mechanical voice returned. NPC satisfaction has reached 0. Final player evaluation initiated. Objective: obtain NPC Alice's forgiveness. A glowing virtual panel appeared before me. 2 options. Yes. No. Chapter 15. My forgiveness? I looked down at the 5 men kneeling before me, their faces soaked in tears. They were finally repenting. After 5 long years of torment, after every hope had been stripped away, they had at last dropped all masks and schemes, showing their truest, most fragile selves. If I were a soft-hearted saint, perhaps at this moment, I should choose yes. Forgive them, release them from their endless punishment, and release myself from this long, hollow existence of watching from above. After all, they had already suffered. After all, they had done countless good deeds in my name, changing the fate of thousands. In a twisted way, my death had even become a kind of blessing. How ironic. But I can't forget the tearing pain when my body was flung into the air. I can't forget their eyes at my funeral, eyes that looked mournful, yet were cold as stone. I can't forget how they used me, reshaped me, and broke me, all for their own gain. Their repentance is real, but so are their selfishness and cruelty. Their pain is real, but my death is, too. In this world, nothing can ever erase what has been done. No amount of making amends can rewrite what already happened. A wound, once inflicted, will always exist. I stared at the hovering options before me. Yes, / no. This was the system's final gift, and my final act of power. The last trace of dignity that still belonged to me. Slowly, I reached out my faint, translucent hand, and pressed NO. I do not forgive. I never will. At that instant, the world seemed to freeze. The men's cries stopped mid-breath. The wind stilled. The moonlight turned solid. Their faces, streaked with tears, froze in that final moment of remorse and despair. Then, above their heads, the red letters flickered violently once more, finally merging into a single cold line of text. A sentence of eternal judgment. Final player evaluation, failed. NPC decision, forgiveness denied. Punishment mode will continue indefinitely until world data collapse is complete. Have a pleasant game. The last 4 words echoed through the graveyard. Mechanical, mocking, and almost gleeful. Then I felt it, a great pull behind me. Gentle yet irresistible. I turned around. A bright, warm light was opening in the distance. I knew that was the path to reincarnation. Finally, I could leave. Leave this absurd world. Leave these 5 pitiful prisoners. I took one last look at them. They were still kneeling. 5 lifeless statues trapped in their eternal penitence. Tomorrow, Leo would wake again to his daily bankruptcy. Simon's scripts would once more turn into bizarre tales of inanimate things. Leonardo's hands would shake uncontrollably. Noah's speech would twist into nonsense. And Joel would wake again to another lonely morning in his endless campus. Their brief spark of hope, I extinguished it myself. That, perhaps, is crueler than despair from the start. But I feel no guilt. They deserve it. I turned away and stepped into the light, without hesitation, without regret. Goodbye, my players. I hope your game lasts long enough to repay every sin you've ever committed.